Welcome to the Mechanical PE Exam Prep Podcast, the podcast where I give mechanical engineers like you the tools and motivation to get your professional engineering license and take your career to the next level. In this episode, I sit down with Blake and Carlton, two newly licensed professional engineers, to talk about the realities of preparing for the PE exam. Carlton shares how he would not have succeeded at taking the PE exam if he didn't have somebody like Blake there keeping him accountable, highlighting the power of study partners and weekly check-ins. Blake admits that he floundered for the first year before finding the right structure, reminding us that persistence and course correction are key parts of the process. Whether you're just starting or you're in the middle of your prep, their candid stories about setbacks, accountability, and ultimately passing the exam will give you practical strategies and motivation to keep going. Welcome, guys. Thanks for being on the podcast. Excited to have you here. Congratulations on recently passing your PE exam. The way I'd like to start out is just to have a little bit of background on each of you. And I know you guys do some work together as well. So maybe one of you could kind of cover how you guys know each other. And Blake, do you want to start us off?
So I work for a mechanical contractor that does a lot of design build. And we happen to also use a lot of the products that Carlton represents. So that's how we stayed in touch after college. We graduated in the same class in college. And so that's kind of how we got connected on this adventure.
Cool. And Carlton?
Mirror, basically, except for I work for the sales company.
Cool. So you guys have done some projects together, where you've sort of collaborated, and any, I don't know how much you can share, but any that stand out or anything recent or maybe ongoing that's kind of interesting that people might like to hear a little bit about that you can share?
So I typically work on, I guess my title is conceptual estimator. So a lot of times we'll just have a floor plan and maybe a couple handy little paragraphs, and they say, "What's your price?" And so oftentimes we'll send Carlton an email that says, "Hey, this is how big our system is, and we need boilers, pumps, expansion tanks, the whole nine." And so he gets to do his engineering side on that side of things, figuring out what the heck we need. And then I'm working with my mentor, boss, whatever you want to call him, and we're putting the rest of the project together, knowing and fully trusting that Carlton's got his act together on the other side.
Yeah, I think that kind of speaks to the collaboration that happens between design and manufacturers or suppliers of equipment, right? Like, I think a lot of people have a conception of design as kind of happening in a vacuum, and the design engineer owns absolutely everything. And in a sense, that's partially true because they're stamping it, so there's ownership there, but there's a lot of input that comes from suppliers and manufacturers in terms of how things are done. And there's also a lot of experience that the suppliers and manufacturers have from specifying equipment for different types of jobs, what fits. Carlton, how do you think about that in terms of your experience and how you deploy equipment and recommend and how you assist in designs?
Yeah, I mean, it's really a lot less of the what to do and a lot more of the what not to do. Keeping our customers out of trouble, trying to guide them around obstacles that we've run into on other projects or things they might not think about on the equipment side of things.
Right.
That's the big thing I end up doing.
Right. Yeah. They're just trying to maybe satisfy the design intent, but not thinking about all the implications and things that could go wrong necessarily. Collaboration there helps to have that relationship too. The fact that you guys went to school together and, you're both pulling on the same end of the rope. So it's not, I would imagine that, delivering these projects, you're going to avoid a lot of the finger pointing, and it's a lot more about how do we get this done right in a way that makes sense, that's on budget, that's on schedule, and everybody's happy at the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go back to, did you both always know that you wanted to get your professional engineering license at some point? Or is it something that you kind of realized as you went along in your career? And you guys probably have different answers to that. So I want to hear from each of you.
I would say that it was a goal. I mean, I got out of school and thought I wanted to do an MBA as well, and I quickly kiboshed that idea. But it was always part of the goal. I don't necessarily need it to do what I'm doing, but would kick myself down the road if I didn't. And that was initially that was a hard motivator. It wasn't like a this will happen if. It's a well, if you don't, you'll be really upset at yourself.
Right. So it was more a matter of the timing of when you were going to take that on. And Carlton, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, with me, it was something I always figured I probably ought to do. I just needed I needed a little bit of an oomph to get the ball rolling, which I really appreciate Blake reaching out because that's the nudge that got the ball rolling. That's what I needed.
Yeah. It's so helpful to have that, you know, it's like, and it could really change the trajectory of things, but it takes that little bit of a spark and kind of saying like, hey, I'm going to do this now. You should do it with me. And now you have that extra accountability and just someone to check in with. And it was really fun talking to both of you guys as you kind of went through the process and just because you guys have different personalities and different styles. And there's in that collaboration, there's synergy. You know, somebody falls behind, maybe somebody's on top of it. Or maybe somebody at one point is going well, but then and it switches, and it's like you can really give each other that boost.
That was huge. Like I don't think I would not have succeeded at taking the PE exam if I didn't have somebody like Blake there with me, kind of dragging me along, keeping me accountable. You know, the weekly meetings were huge.
Yeah, yeah. So I floundered for the first year, and I got now realizing I got quite a ways through it. I think it was like chapter 10 or something when Carlton and I were going through it, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is where I quit last year. And so new year came around, life got that much busier, and I said, yeah, so who can I swindle into going into the trenches with me on this one?
So
And
you
my
kind
first
of
thought,
knew that it was going to be that you needed that, you know, kind of accountability to make the difference in the next attempt.
yeah, yeah. And I was kind of leaning on my wife a little bit, and you know, she was doing a study thing in the meantime, and it just came really easy to her. So I'm glad that I had Carlton because we're both really struggle to sit still, and so we're much more aligned, let alone
Yeah.
being on the same topic too. But
So did you guys actually study together or did you kind of study separately and then check in? Like how did your accountability process kind of shape itself?
Yeah, we so what we would do is we would study separately and then meet up once a week and do a check-in, you know, touch on problems we're really having trouble with, go over them with each other, get mad, say words, you know,
yeah,
all the good
yeah.
stuff.
A couple of times lash out at Dan. Oh, he's wrong on this one. He is. I know he is.
You can't be right.
Oh, I love that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean that brings me right back to like college days and studying for final exams with buddies of mine in the library. We'd go in the small room with no windows where you have to like give your driver's license and they take it as collateral so that you won't like abuse the room or whatever. But we'd go in there and I think we spent 50% of the time studying and the other half of the time exactly what you said, sort of getting mad, getting frustrated about like what the heck is this and it's confusing and it's annoying and you need to release some of that energy, especially as a college kid. Like you just, what are we doing in here? But of course, then you need to get back to, you know, once you've gotten rid of that, you got to do some work and you got to think and it's hard and it helps to have other people to kind of be there to think through it with you. So that's great. It's so funny. I'm just imagining all the folks that go through this process by themselves because they just don't have someone like that to do it with. And that can be rough. You need an outlet for that stuff.
Yeah, no, it was a huge help. And some weeks we would meet up and, you know, we're about 45 minutes, half hour away from each other's houses. And so some weeks it was like, okay, well, I just drove all that distance after work just to complain about nothing that had to do with anything related to the test, but at least we know where each other's at and try it again next week.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then when you go the next day to go study, you're like, oh, at least I don't have to process all that. I can just get
Yeah.
into the technical stuff. So tell me about timelines. It sounds like, Blake, you started on your own first. You had some momentum, you lost that momentum, you waited a while, you restarted with Carlton. What was the timeline like from that point for you guys?
So I think I called Carlton December or early January.
Yeah, the New Year, yeah.
And asked him if he'd be interested in a couple, maybe a week later, he said he was game. And so we started our first meetup was like beginning of February of this year. And we just kind of started going from there. We set our timelines. We listened to, because I'd already listened to all your videos at the beginning anyway. I kind of jumped around to some of the timelines that we had to hit. And so we sat down and we made a plan to, okay, we're more like, the hour a day crew, hour and a half. And so that brings us out to, we were thinking like a 6-month duration. So we were planning August wise.
But then things changed.
Yes, they did change.
Tell me, what changed?
Well, we kept plugging along, really thinking that, every week, well, yeah, no, I kind of flopped on this week and I missed a couple days. And
did that start happening right from the outset, or did you get some stuff done and then it fell off? Like, where did the productivity falter?
Like, I don't know if this is true for you, but I know like the first couple of months, I was going hard. I was good. But the last couple of months, it was really spotty. Like the last month, I don't even think I really did anything. I mean, I did the practice tests and that was it. That's all I did for studying the last month.
Well, that's a lot. I mean, whole practice test and reviewing, the ones you missed from the practice test, that's actually quite a bit. But if there were, days after day after day after day where it starts to turn into a week or more where you're not doing very much at all, then, that's a lapse, right? That's a big momentum loss if that's happening at any point. And for most folks, that tends to happen after a couple of months because it's a lot. If you're doing an hour a day on average for 8 weeks straight, you get a lot done in that span of time, but you're still pretty far from the finish line. And it feels like you're in the middle of this thing. It's like being at mile 13 of a marathon. You run a lot, but you got a long way to go. So you start thinking like, I don't know if I want to just keep doing this. I prefer to stop. But you also know the dates are coming. And you guys weren't registered for a date at that point, were you? Or
No. So that's when it really got real. I think we floundered, probably not floundered, but I was missing days and after that 2-month mark and we got to, I can't remember the sections, but they started there was some profanity on the study packets for a couple weeks there, and started looking into the test dates and had a meeting with you. And you said, you guys, I know you don't feel like you're really making the progress that you'd like to, but you could probably wrap this thing up in like 6 weeks. And
this was
thank
early
God
summer?
You did. Yeah, that was like May. I think we had a meeting with you, 15-minute catch-up meeting, pretty short and sweet, but once we had that meeting, then we're like, okay, we got to pick a date and nail it and just get to that point and know we're studying for that point. And there was no dates. There's
nothing.
One date for the whole summer, and maybe October was the next available time.
Yeah.
It was like anywhere in the Northeast, and Carlton was very stern that he was not going to the city for that nonsense.
No, ain't likely. Yeah, and
Wow.
there was a time squeeze too. So I'm having my first kid in September, actually, in a few weeks now. So I really didn't want to do it after that either. So that date was it.
I ended up taking the test a week and a half after I got married. So, but hey, that helped me with the to-do list on the getting ready for the wedding stuff.
Yeah.
Jeez, I got an 8-hour practice test. I'd love to help today, but
really getting off on the right foot. Like I got my priorities,
The support was astounding. I'll put that punch in there.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. She was there for you. Wow. So that conversation in May kind of got you guys remotivated. And because there was only one date, it wasn't much of a decision. It's like, well, we're doing this. It made sense for both of you. And then you locked in. And from there, was it smooth sailing, or, you still had a couple months of work to do? Or maybe you just had a little bit more focus and clarity from that point? Like it probably felt different after registering for the date, right?
Yeah, it definitely brought me out of a coma there. It brought me back to life and got me back studying again, getting the date 6 weeks away.
Yeah, no, it definitely helped us grind through the last lessons, and I'd say the first practice exam of yours was a pretty good eye opener for me. That like, okay, we gotta really study this practice exam and take the time that I need to make sure that we got plenty of time to take all the other one and an NCES one, and okay, let's
Yeah.
get this going.
Yeah. And, that is a very normal thing for people that come through this program is I think sometimes there's an expectation that they go through all the core modules and practice problems, and then they expect that they're going to be a finished product when they take the full practice exams at the end. And actually, no, you're a long ways along, but there's still more work to be done. So those final two exams are a chance to find more of the gaps. So if you find them, that's a good thing. Your studying's not done until you're all the way at the end. So it's good that like you said, it's an eye opener, and it's probably uncomfortable to have any eye opener experiences in the final month. You kind of want it to be boring, but at the same time, if there's going to be moments like that, you want them to happen then and not on exam day.
Yeah, I don't know if the first practice test, if I got like a 50 or a 60 on it or something, but and then Carlton and I went back through it together, and it was like, oh, well, I didn't use absolute temperature on the COP, and there was very good clumps of stuff that made it so, oh, well, that was like 6 questions wrong right there. And so there was a lot of good feedback that came along with it. One thing I want to note on the getting hung up and discouraged a couple months in was the completion emails that I get every week from your thinkific.com. So when I bailed last year, I think I got to like 22% complete. And as I sit today, the email that I got this weekend is 49% complete, and I'm all tested out and done. So I think I was like, 2, 3 months in and still looking at this completion percentage and like, holy cow, so that meeting that we had with you was certainly a game changer.
And you guys probably have different answers to this because you were actually studying separately and then just checking in. What kind of a study schedule did you keep? I'm sure you have different situations with work and everything else, but do you guys like to study in the morning, evening, weekends? When did you find that you were getting most of your hours when it was going well?
So the majority of my studying took place after work. I would do it for an hour, about
Would you
5 days
stay
a
right in
week.
the office or were you working from home?
Yeah, I work from home, so I go from this desk to that desk,
Ah,
and I'd work on it for an hour or so. The problem I had was doing it at the end of the day after my brain was fried. I kept getting the same stuff wrong it's like not carrying units was my big problem. I get lazy and start forgetting units because I'm wiped out. I did notice when I studied in the morning, like on the weekends, if I did a morning session, I didn't have those problems.
hmm.
And that was a
Yeah.
consistent thing. I mean, Blake can vouch for that. It was consistent through the whole damn study thing.
Yeah, when you're most patient and you have your best energy, you take care of all the little details. And when you're kind of fried and tired, you're like, eh, and you get lazy, you don't write them, and maybe it works out, but maybe it doesn't. And you're like, ooh, what happened there? How about you, Blake?
Yeah, so I done the morning thing, and that works as long as my ambition works. I did some stuff at lunchtime, like especially in the beginning when it was more just familiarizing and all kind of the preview stuff. Once we started getting into problems, I couldn't bring myself to do too many problems at lunchtime, so it fell back to a nighttime thing. A natural procrastinator, it was like, okay, well, you haven't got that done yet, so you better get that going. And
Yeah.
actually, so I have a 5-year-old, and I only have him half the time. So the days that I would have him, surprisingly, were easier to study because of his routine. And okay, bedtime's at 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then by the time he's actually down and out, then I had that window every night. And then the other nights was trying to catch up with errands and everything else, and there wasn't as much routine. And So I actually struggled on the other nights that I would have more free time. So
Right.
that was an interesting.
It is interesting. And I think that's another great insight for anyone listening out there that's a parent. You might think that you have a disadvantage because you're maybe thinking about younger engineers who aren't parents yet and have, the ability to just design their whole schedule and control everything, down to the minute if they wanted to. But actually, it can be just the opposite, because sometimes when we have the freedom and all the space to do whatever we want, somehow it all gets messy and it runs into itself and it becomes easy to procrastinate. We take on too much. But when you have constraints, like things have to happen at certain times, you have responsibilities, and that fills up blocks of time and leaves only certain other blocks open, then you have to do it. It's now or never. It's like, I have to finish by that time or I can't start until this time. And all of a sudden, things fall into place. So it's a very strange phenomenon where constraints can actually be helpful. Engineers would appreciate that, right? It gives you that starting point for how am I going to make this work? Not can I, how am I going to? Because like the date is coming, so you have to find a way to make progress. Love that insight. What would you guys say was the most challenging part of the whole process?
I would say just committing the time and trying not to miss a day, because not only was I out of it, but just I'd get so down on myself. It was like it was a spiral. And even just if I just did one problem that night, it was something that I could be thinking about and, getting ready for the next problem I got to do. And it was just keeping my mind in it.
Yeah, and for me, it was just committing that hour, committing to doing the hour, because you get done work, you don't want to keep working. It's just the absolute not the thing I want to do. So that was the hardest part for me, staying on task.
Yeah, just making the decision. I know for me, if I do that, I'm the same way, like just deciding that that's how that hour is going to be spent ahead of time. And then it's not a negotiation. Because if I find myself deciding at the moment, then I'm more likely to make the wrong decision. Because like I can find reasons to not do the thing, whatever it is. But if I've already decided, then there's nothing to discuss in the moment. You just have to take it. It's like, all right, well, this is what we're doing. So yeah, it's so fascinating, like how we negotiate with ourselves. I don't know. But then you kind of go back to your reasons of like why you're doing it and getting it done, and like it's now or never. And the fact that you guys were together on it, I have to imagine that helps. It's like, oh, what am I going to tell Blake? What am I going to tell Carlton? Like I just stopped. What is that?
Yeah, yeah. And one of us would get a little bit ahead of the other one. And that week that we, didn't have such a good week, it was, oh, okay, yeah, no, I got to catch up or I'm letting him down.
Did that ever happen? Who fell behind more than the other? See if we can call someone out here.
I'll take that one. I think I definitely fell behind.
I was much more comfortable with you a little bit behind. I got real anxious. I got real anxious if I fell behind.
If he started nipping at your heels, it's like, oh, wait a minute now. You're supposed to stay a little bit behind me here.
Hey, stay 10 to 15 problems behind me here, buddy. Stay back there. Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. Well, he sells pumps, so he's already got that pump section nailed down. So I was already at a disadvantage here.
Yeah, I could do that with my eyes closed.
Were there any surprises, like in a technical realm like that, where either of you was like better at something that you thought would be really hard, or worse at something that you thought would be really easy? And just anything that kind of stands out when you kind of think back to it. Was everything harder than you expected? Was it, I don't know, like.
So for me, the stuff I deal with day to day, I didn't have any problems with. Heat exchangers, pumps, that sort of stuff. That was not bad. That was pretty easy and stayed pretty straightforward. The places I struggled because I have such a focus on equipment was like the big picture stuff. Like designing the heat load for a space or a building or doing the solar gain stuff, because I just don't touch it. It's just not something I deal with. And that was a lot harder than I thought it would be.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and I would say that, and actually some of the pumping stuff was a huge challenge for me as far as which equation do I need to use, and okay, are we coming up from here and then down here? And I don't really get into that stuff usually. I just need a dollar value more often than not. And
right. Length of pipe, what components are along the way, how many valves, and
yeah, we'll work that stuff out later. As long as I'm covered, we'll figure that stuff out down there.
right.
But
makes sense. Yeah, it's interesting. You know, you guys have different sets of experience, and that gives you some advantages and some disadvantages, and they're different. And then you just kind of go from there. I was the same way, Blake, with the fluids. I don't know what it was. I think my fluids class was just too early back in college. I just didn't absorb much of anything. The professor was a very nice guy, super smart, but had a bit of an accent, and I just wasn't following, and I was very sleepy. So
Yeah. I
nothing
mean, I'm
doing there.
sure Bernoulli's a good guy, but him and I didn't really get along.
Yeah. Oh, so good. All right. So how about test day? Did you guys maybe just tell me a little bit about what the day was like for you? I know you can't say too much about the exam itself, but were you nervous? What was your experience like in the test center? And did you guys go to the same test center? Nice. So you kind of knew he's there, I'm here. We're both doing it today.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
they set us straight beside each other too, the rotten boogers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They said, you guys are in it for the long haul. Go in the corner.
Yeah, they stuffed us in the corner. Yeah.
I would say I did drive there like a week or so in advance just to know where it was and have one less thing to worry about. Tried to kind of keep it in mind like a normal work day, not get too worried about it. I knew we did plenty of study guides and I did go through some of that stuff. I think did a full 8-hour test the weekend before just because of the way things worked out with the wedding and all that. And other than that, my wife packed me a very nice lunch, so I was
Ooh,
really excited about
solid.
that.
That's a good note for anyone listening who's a partner taking the PE. If you want to support, a very nice lunch goes a long way. So the morning flew by and you were well fueled for the afternoon session.
Yes. I would say the biggest thing about the test that had me not sure how I did was just like with your work, it's more like most everything that you gave us in the problem was used, where a lot of these questions were the answers seemed to be stupid simple, but they gave you so much extra info on some of them where it was like, is
Yeah.
this really all it is?
Mm. So you have to have the confidence and the conviction to ignore like half the information, even though it's
Yeah,
offered to you,
and it
because you
wasn't
know
like
what to pick out, what to use.
yeah, it wasn't like every problem, but there was a lot of them that it was like this is way too much info for this answer they're looking for.
Mm.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not going to go into the specifics, but there was a problem that I did, and I got an answer that was on the sheet, but it didn't seem right for my experience, my day to day work life. So for the last half hour of the test, I think I redid that problem like 3 or 4 times because I was done, and I didn't believe that was the right answer. I think it was. Now that after I left, I went and looked at my ashtray book and was like, "Dang, I think I was right." But
Wow. So you
it
ended up
didn't
leaving
feel
it after all that, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's
of
so
course,
funny
I
how they
came in the next day or a couple days later and talked over one of like the controls questions with my peers at the office, and they're like, "Oh, you definitely got that part of that one wrong." Like,
Hmm.
"Oh, all right. When's
Lie to
Wednesday
me.
coming?"
Tell me next Wednesday. Don't
Yeah.
tell me now. That's one of my favorite things about the PE exam. Studying for it as well as the exam itself is kind of like getting your juices flowing on some of these ideas that are tangentially related to the stuff you actually work on, so it matters to you, and bringing that to work and talking to peers and colleagues about it, and like bouncing ideas. And that to me is like really the spirit of what the PE is all about. It's supposed to invite us to engage in the technical and curious side of our engineering profession, which many of us don't get to do that all day, every day, even though that's probably part of what made us want to be engineers in the first place. We're not getting to scratch that itch. And this is a chance to do that. If half or more of your day is spent in meetings and dealing with schedules and dealing with, budgets and things like that. It's all important. It's all part of the job. But the technical stuff is hopefully kind of at the center of that, even if it's way less than half of what you do on a day to day. So it kind of brings me joy to hear you talk about a controls problem with a colleague. Like it's just, to me, that's what it's about.
Yeah, yeah, I won't admit that it was a lot of fun at times. Just to, like you said, you're not really getting into the weeds at work. You've got everything else that's involved. So when you can just kind of focus on this stuff and like at the end of it, you're like, wow, I figured that out. That was all right.
Yeah.
I might know what I'm talking about.
It's very satisfying to
Yeah.
see how it's all put together. I guess to wrap up, what advice would you offer to someone in a similar situation that's considering going for their PE, or maybe they've already decided that they are, is there something that you'd like to share with them as a recommendation, or maybe something that surprised you or that you didn't expect, or if it is something that you've already mentioned that you just want to double down on if anyone's looking for a soundbite before they start the journey?
I mean, I can't recommend enough. Have somebody else there with you. Do it in pairs or a group, because without that accountability, there's no way I would have accomplished the studying or the test. I just wouldn't have done it. So the accountability buddy is huge.
Definitely underestimated. People underestimate the value of having someone to help accountable. And, you know, like you said at the beginning, Blake, you can kind of use someone that's already a support structure in your life, like a family member, a spouse, or whatever. And that is huge and it's super helpful. But to have someone that's technical as well, that's doing it with you, that is the most optimal case, because they have to be responsible for answering the same questions you are. You can't hide from the challenge. And dealing with that together is pretty special.
Yeah, no, it certainly wouldn't have worked out as well as it did without having Carlton. I will say, if you do find yourself going through it and getting to a point and stopping, well, when you pick it up again, it's easier. You know what you're getting into, you're seeing stuff for the second time. So hopefully it's more familiar. Most of the time I'm like, did I really do this last year? Because I'm not sure. But it definitely, life doesn't get any slower.
Yeah. And I think I remember speaking to you, Blake, one-on-one, and I hope you don't mind me sharing, before Carlton was kind of in the picture, all of us chatting. And I just wanted to give you a ton of grace at that point in time for having started and had a false start, for two reasons. One, because you already did a lot of work at that point. Obviously, there was more to be done, but that doesn't discount what you already did. Secondly, if something's important, but it's also really hard, sometimes we hit a roadblock, and that doesn't mean that the next try has to end up different than the last try. And I think for anyone who has started this process and not taken it all the way to completion yet, I hope that they're hearing your story and thinking, okay, this time I'm going to do it, and that they can really make it happen.
Yeah, and the support structure outside of the tests, like outside of Carlton, was really good and really helpful, and I couldn't have done it without them either. It is tough with them where they're kind of in a spot like, well, what happens? You can, put your hours in next week. We'll make it happen, and I'll support you and all that stuff, which is outstanding. But it is, when you're in the moment and you're the only one testing or studying, you are harder on yourself. So if you are doing it by yourself, just know that there's somebody else doing it that also skipped a day yesterday. So don't worry about it.
Yeah. Just try not to make it 2 in a row.
Yeah.
And if it's already been 2 in a row, try not to do 2 more. You gotta start the chain again at some point, right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, the last question I had for you guys is, how has passing impacted your career so far? And I know it was very recent, so maybe it's nothing just yet, but what's this going to mean for each of you in the future?
I mean, for me, it mostly, I feel like it's going to make my clients have more confidence in my competence. Oh, this guy actually has the PE license. He's not just a sales guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But beyond it, no immediate impact.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that in and of itself is a lot, right? Just to have the authority that comes with having those 2 letters after your name, it shows the work that you've done. And yeah, clients are going to notice that. Your email signature looks a little different than it did before.
Yeah. I would say that I would say the same. And I got to get new business cards. But now my boss says that it's all my fault, which is nice.
So you have that. Yeah.
Yeah. And for the years of, being in estimating, you're getting partial plans and, ripping on engineers all the time. So now it's been constant jokes of being one of them. And
yeah, now you're on the hook too. You can't just blame it on the other guy.
Yeah. So no, it's all good.
Well, I'm really proud of both of you guys. Congratulations. And I'm excited to hear how things go for you in the future. Anything else that you guys wanted to add before we break here?
Well, can't thank you enough for deciding that this was your life path, because you're helping out a lot of people in the meantime.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to the Mechanical PE Exam Prep Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review to help other engineers find the podcast. And if you're looking for a program that will help you pass the PE exam, check out the full access bundle available at mechanicalpeexamprep.com, and feel free to reach out with any questions. I would be honored to be your guide on the journey to becoming a professional engineer.